the podium with Mr. Shawn Eichorst, Athletic Director of Nebraska.
How did this all come about in your mind? How did it unfold?
It's a good question. And I can appreciate, hopefully it was a surprise hire because it was a pretty quiet and fast search. I've been doing this for a while, and I think one of the things that I've said since I've been here, and hopefully I've done over the course of the last couple of years, is to look, listen, and learn. And that not only applies to Nebraska, but that applies to every place I've been. And my job on a day-to-day basis is to put this university in a good position to be successful on a lot of levels. And so for me, I think you guys all know what my characteristics are and what I am motivated by, and the desires that I have, and the people that are working and teaching with our young people. And so for me, Mike's been on my radar for probably 10 years. When I was down in Carolina, when we had a coaching change there, I was mentored by Coach Mike McGee at South Carolina, and I really got close to him, and I didn't really ask a lot of questions. I just watched and listened to what he did and how he developed characteristics and how he went about his searches and that sort of stuff. And so Mike came on the radar mainly because he was a great football coach. He's an elite coach. He's a teacher. He has unique skills and abilities relative to the fact that he's coordinated both sides of the ball. And you heard what he thinks about special teams. That's an important part of the deal. And so the process went pretty quickly for me. I got home Sunday night and after meeting with the team, and took a deep breath, and I don't think I have slept since then. I got right into it. Again, the list of my characteristics and the things that I wanted in a coach and the fit and all that sort of stuff were there. And I wasn't looking at people at that point. I was just thinking about qualities in people. And then when you go through the list and you think about the people who are good fits and who you might be able to get, it's a tough business to move elite coaches from Power 5 conferences. I don't think the statistics bear out very well that you're able to do that. And so quickly in my mind, Sunday morning, I was fixed on Mike, and I reached out to him to see if he'd be interested in the job. He was. And at that point, I recruited my tail off like I've never done before. I was focused. I was locked in. I knew what I wanted. And it just so happened that Harvey was in San Francisco. And I said, Mike, where are you? And he goes, I'm going recruiting in San Francisco. And so I said, well, this might be meant to be. And so I got a hold of Harvey, and I said, can we spend some time with Mike? And he said yes. And we had a great visit on Tuesday. And Mike left the room, and I looked at Harvey, and I said, I think this is our guy. And he said, yep. I called Mike back, and we talked about whether it would be a good fit and the parameters of the deal, and then went home. And Harvey and I did our due diligence, put an agreement together, went through the process with discussing that agreement with Interim President Lindner and General Counsel Joel Peterson and our wonderful executive committee of the Board of Regents. And Wednesday night we had a ball coach.
Shawn, what's your level of concern about just the record? I mean, the wins and losses, because as many fans pointed out yesterday, Mike's record, especially over the past 5 years, isn't terribly impressive.
I have zero concern about that. I think I talked about that a few days ago. About it's not always about the outcomes. It's about the circumstances. It's about the people. I'm looking forward. We have an elite football coach who now has an incredible history and tradition behind him, incredible resources, a passionate fan base. What I've seen over the course of the last 24 hours with our team and our former players, and I know there's uncertainty in our fan base, but we have a good football coach, and I think folks are ready and excited to unite and take this program to where it should be. And so I'm not, through my lens, as I'm looking for characteristics in a person who I want to work with our young people, we're going to have success. I know that, and and you can hear it in Mike's voice. He's a football coach. That's who he is. He's not defined by that, but that's who he is. He's a teacher, and he puts himself and others around him in a position, I think, to be successful. I think you got to look at some of those big games that he's had, where he's been, and some of the things he's been able to do, and it's been quite remarkable.
Hey, Shawn. Hey, just a point of clarification. You'd said that you locked in on Mike. I think you said Sunday morning. Did you mean Monday morning?
Yes, Monday. Thanks, Eric. Yeah.
Shawn, other than the conversation that you and Chancellor Perlman had with him on Tuesday, what other kind of research did this entail for you? Were there coaches or administrators who you're familiar with, who you had a connection with that knew of Mike and could give him a recommendation for you?
It's a good question, Mitch. Good morning. As I stated earlier, and I've watched a lot of searches from afar. I've been a part of them. I've never felt that the clean ones, the successful ones, were done right in that moment. And so I think that over time I've prepared myself. I've done a couple of these. I've been a part of a couple of these. So over time, I have a lot of trusted mentors that I respect. Not only coaches, I think you got to look at non-traditional people too as you evaluate candidates because of the bias associated with relationships and that sort of stuff. So, I'm around a lot of lawyers that represent institutions, compliance folks. I listen to NFL scouts because they're here all the time. I listen to high school coaches. I listen to journalists. I like you guys. I do. You may not think so. You may not think I'm listening, but I am. And you can learn things along the way. And so, and in order to do these things in a very professional, swift manner, particularly when you're trying to get an elite football coach, you got to be decisive and you got to be quick. And so, Mitch, to answer your question, a lot of what the due diligence had already been done. Certainly, I had dug deeper into his background. Sunday night and Monday, and then certainly into Tuesday. And quite frankly, again, I think the fit and the characteristics came together relatively quickly, and we got a really good football coach.
Shawn, on Sunday in your news conference, you said in the recent years Nebraska had lost games that mattered. When you look at Coach Riley's resume and you see that he's beaten a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3 ranked team out there in the Pac-12, how much of an impact did that have on your decision when you see he's been beating top-ranked teams? It
certainly was a factor in what I was looking for. Beating a number 6 Arizona State team this year, I think was an incredible achievement with his ball club. But again, it's not about one loss or one win. I think it's a track record, and you can be strayed, you can be distracted by all those outcome things, statistics, all that other sort of stuff. I'm looking at people, and I got a good person who is an exceptional football coach.
Hey, Shawn, there is a perception that you haven't made a high-profile hire, but you say you've been involved in such hires. Where was that? Who are we talking about?
Sure.
Those types of things.
Well, number one, I hired Jim Larrañaga at Miami, and last time I looked, second year was in the Sweet 16, and I think they're in the top 20 this year. And so I think I do have a pretty good track record of hiring high-profile elite coaches. Certainly, having been at Wisconsin, we've hired some coaches, not in the bigger sports like football and basketball, but I was intimately involved in hiring Steve Spurrier at the University of South Carolina with Coach McGee. And again, I think that if you study, if you take time to evaluate, you don't necessarily have to be on the inside. But I've talked to a lot of administrators and a lot of coaches about how it went. Okay, and why didn't it work? Why did it work? Those sorts of things. So hopefully in some ways I've learned along the way, and I've been disciplined enough to steal other people's ideas about how you do things. But I think if you get decisive, you know what you want, and you're swift, you can get some things done.
Shawn,
Hey, Shawn, how important was it to you to have somebody who has sat in the head coach's chair as opposed to maybe a coordinator who's had success but hasn't experienced what it's like to have that head coach role?
Good question. Again, I think I would go back to just elite characteristics in a person and a coach. I think you guys have heard me say this before. They come in all shapes and sizes. It's fire, brimstone, it's relaxed, it's in the middle. We've seen coaches in this business be really successful coming from all different areas. So I was just looking at the big picture, not really thinking too much about that, although I think at a place like Nebraska, with all its great history and tradition and resources, experience matters.
Take one more.
Shawn, you hired a coach who's 61 years old, who was at home, who was probably a couple years from retirement. At what point in the process were you certain that he was up for this? That he was...
From the first phone call.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Well, let me just digress 1 second. I hired another 62-year-old ball coach in Jim Larinaga, and he's going to be coaching for a long time, I can tell you that. And this is a son of a football coach. This is what he does. He's not looking to retire. He's going to coach his butt off as long as he can. And when we were talking, I could sense in his voice what a great opportunity for me to come to a great place like Nebraska and work with the quality of young people. And I could just sense excitement and inspiration, and so in that I felt I never really get caught up in the age thing and all that other sort of stuff, because I just don't think that matters at the end of the day. Steve came in for us at Carolina at 60-61. Look at him. He's still rolling, and last time I looked, he had like 3 11-win seasons in a row, and he tells me about it every time I talk to him too. So no, I didn't. This guy, you're going to find out real quickly. The other thing is Mike and I go about our business somewhat similar, but don't for a second think that we're not competitive. This guy right here is as competitive as anybody I've talked to, and nobody wants to win more than we do, but there's a way you go about doing that.
All right, thanks everyone. Appreciate it.
Pardon?